you were able to get here. My name's Donna Coffin. I work with Cooperative Extension in Piscataquis and Penobscot County. And Lori also works in Piscataquis and Penobscot County too. And she's handing out a page that has our publications on it. And I believe if you have a smartphone, you can scan that QR code and it will take you to that page and it will have all the links and easy peasy to look them up. If there's somebody that doesn't have access to the internet and you'd like to get copies of those, we'll be handing out a sign-up sheet. If you put your mailing address, then we'll mail them to you. But I think people have found they don't like to lug around a lot of paper if they don't have to. And then there are people that, I'm of a certain age that I was used to paper. And so it's gotten me a little bit of time, but I've found sometimes electronic files are easy to file and those types of things. But we can work with it either way. I did say we will have a sign-up sheet. We also have a garden newsletter that we send out once a month, and we don't share emails. But if you'd like to get it, it's electronic, and that's a free thing. So we'll send that around. And Lori was handing out a couple of little cards. And the white card, if you wait until the end to fill it out, that gives folks that fund us an idea of, well, how did we do? Was it helpful? Did we make a coherent program for you? And the other card is a blue card, and that's a demographic information card. And because Extension is federally funded, they've asked that we ask our audience to identify themselves by those demographic information. It's optional on your part. It's required that we ask you. So if you choose to fill that out, we'd appreciate it, and you can just leave it on your chair or whatever, and we can pick it up later on. So now, starting seeds for 2023. Can you imagine that? And somebody said, so where's that greenhouse?
Yeah.
Well, I used to live in Sebec, and those of you that have been here a while may remember Lamb's Strawberry Farm. That was my place. And you didn't notice, but on the back of the house was a little bump out of a greenhouse. And at the time, remember, there was a Hallett's, and you could get big windows, the windows that they used for sliding glass doors. We got just those windows. And that's how we made that with tuba
That's
sixes.
nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
And remember, we're at the 45th parallel, so the angle's 45.
Oh.
So that way you get the heat of the sun during the winter. And then during the summer, the sun is at a higher angle, so it's not quite as intense. But it does get hot. I had sliding doors on the house side of it, so I'd keep those closed. But anyway, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So here we are, starting seeds. And first of all, I'd like to get an idea. So have you started seeds before? Did you have some success? Did you have some that were not quite as successful as you'd wished? And is there something you really want to find out today that to make sure that we bring it up? So Dottie, I know you've started seeds.
I've been gardening for 65 years.
So
yeah.
have you had, are you looking for something special today?
No, I figured every time I attend something like this, I always learn something. It's like with Master Gardener. The first course 10 years ago was fantastic. I did it twice, and each time I learned something new.
And
So
sometimes
just
it's a
my benefit.
reminder too. It's a
Mhm.
reminder. If you're like me, you need to be reminded.
Yeah.
Anybody else have some successes or failures? Yeah.
I've been doing it for a long time, starting them. The thing that I had problems with were onions. And I wondered if maybe the place where I had my seedlings was too hot. Do
Uh-huh.
onions need to be cooler or something?
They do.
So I
Yeah.
shouldn't have them probably
Yeah, and you can start them earlier too.
start them earlier, so it wouldn't be as warm.
Yeah. And now you're talking about starting the seeds, right?
Correct.
Because the sets are, you
No,
just put
I'm
them out
not
in the garden.
talking, I'm starting the seeds.
Yep.
Yep.
And onions are, the way they grow, you know, you'd think most of our plants, you plant them and then they grow and produce their fruits and everything. They're good to go. Onions are aware of the daylight length, and so they grow vegetatively until about the longest day of the year. And then they'll start filling up the bulb of the onion.
Okay.
So if you are late putting them out into the garden and it's really close, you know, to June 20th, or some varieties vary a little bit, then you'll get, you know, an onion that has nice leaves and a little stinking bulb. I've had that happen to me. That's why I know. Yes.
I was wondering about brown zucchinis. Some of them got too big, and so we saved them to give to the deer. But another year, how would we save the seeds on some of them?
We're going to be talking about saving seeds.
Oh,
Good. Good. Yeah.
Yes, it will be a garlic question. We've just spent the last 6 years gardening Zone 3A in North Dakota, so that brought its own challenges. So this will be our first year in Maine. I intend to grow garlic.
Uh-huh.
I haven't been able to grow it for a lot of years, but I'm going to grow it from seed.
Ooh.
So I'll probably bring a couple of questions up regarding, you know,
Garlic
aware
from
the
seed, yeah, garlic from seed. Most people use the corms, use the garlic cloves.
Yeah.
And if we don't know the answer, we'll find out the answer.
Well, I got some German giant garlic seed because it's what I want to grow, and I couldn't get it as bulbs or corms.
Yeah.
That's why I've gone for the seed
Yeah.
option.
And our plant pathologist does have a program where you can get, if you ever sell garlic for seed, you can get your starts tested for disease. There are some diseases that are very prevalent with garlic. But as a gardener, when you're buying them, if you can get certified garlic, that's good too. And we do have a website. Again, if you go to UMaine Extension Garlic, it should bring up our garlic website, and it has a list of farms that have been certified. Yep.
I read in a farm magazine a few years ago, if you're gonna plant onion sets and onion seeds or seedlings, do not plant them near each other. Why?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. It
I'm
just
not
said,
sure.
you know, they don't do well if you plant them near each other,
Yep.
but it didn't say why.
It may be a competition thing,
I don't.
because when you put your set in, the set's quite a bit bigger
Right,
than a seedling.
yeah,
So I'm not sure.
okay, thank you.
Anything else? Shall we go through it? And if you have questions when we're going through, that's fine. So, what we're going to talk about, starting seeds indoors, we'll talk about the when, the where, and the how. That's our plan. So when is the last frost-free date in Dover Foxcroft area? And I have had to alter this map by 5 days. So we got 5 more days, or we can, how can I say that? Our frost-free date is 5 days earlier. And that may not be absolutely accurate. We may have some extra time, but it's like 5 days. So frost-free dates. So there are the frost-free dates. And in this area, in Dover Foxcroft, you know, between May 15th and May 25th. But average means you get a 50-50 chance of getting a frost. So if you've got a cold susceptible crop, you want to add 2 weeks to that. And so cold susceptible crops, we're looking at May 29th to June 1st. And a lot of times the traditional time that people put out their garden was Memorial Day. And so you may think, well, that's not much difference. Well, we had a lot of people that tried to jump the gun. So it's real important to look at that frost-free date and be aware that it's changing. In your particular place, you may have a little microclimate that your last frost-free date is a little earlier or a little later all the time. So if you've been in a place for 20 years, then you know. But if you just moved here from North Dakota, I'd at least start with this.
Yeah.
And you can move on. And down at the bottom, if you want to find out for your specific zip code, davesgarden.com has a guide for freeze dates. So the timeline and what you're starting, it depends on what you're starting, when you can start them. Some plants, some seedlings we can grow for quite a while. Some seedlings we can only grow for a few weeks before we set them out. And so this is a general type of thing, and my months have kind of shifted. The blue should be March, the light green should be April, the bluish color there is May, and the orange is June. So sorry about that, it got shifted around. But early crops, you can start them in March. And then I've got another little circle. If you have an outdoor cold frame, you could set them in an outdoor cold frame. That means they're protected from the cold, because it will get kind of cold. And then that green dot is when you can transplant them outside into your garden. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't just forget them. You want to watch the news, watch the weather, and if they say there's a chance of frost in your area, you can get out there and cover them and protect them.
Plus you have to acclimate them before you put them out.
Right, that's right. We'll talk about that a little bit. But the early crops, your celery, lettuces, and cabbages, the warm season crops, the tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants, you want to wait until like the end of March. Try to delay it. Lori's going to be running the One Tomato Project. If you haven't heard of that, we give out cherry tomato seedlings in the springtime, and we work with a local greenhouse. And it's like, so, we let him know when we want it. We let him know we're going to pick them up the first week in June, and he doesn't start them in March. Of course, he's got perfect conditions, so they grow real well. The vine crops, the cucumbers, melons, and pumpkins, you see, it's recommended not to start them until the first part of May. They're very sensitive to being transplanted. So 4 weeks in a pot is about it. And then they got to go in the garden where they're going to be home for the summer. So that's the thing to remember. And I always have people say, well, I started my cucumber in March, and well, if it's a big enough pot, and you're not disturbing the roots, you may have been lucky. But as a general rule, 4 weeks for the vine crops. And some of you may have flowers, and this is just another way of looking at it. If the growth rate on particular plants is slow, then you can start them earlier, like 12 weeks before the before the last frost that you're going to set them out in the garden. If they're medium growing, like the broccoli, about 10 weeks. And tomatoes, 6 weeks. And like I said, the cucumbers and marigolds, they're really fast growing, so 4 weeks and they're out. So seed selection. First thing on there is reputable company. And I say that because I have been susceptible to going into Martin's or other discount houses and seeing that bin of 10-cent seed packets, and I too could not resist them. And sometimes they'll work good. Sometimes they'll germinate and they'll work good. Sometimes what's on the packet isn't what's in the seed, either a different variety or a different type of plant. There's a reason they're 10 cents, There's a reason. And seeds we might think of as being very expensive, but imagine what you're getting in that little seed. You're getting a lot of the genetics that the companies have developed through the years, like Johnny Seed, a Maine company, They started when I started an extension, you know, so they've been at it a long time. And they've been trying to improve, and I bet you anything, they don't have many of the varieties that they had in their initial catalog, unless they're an heirloom. So reputable company. If you're thinking that the seed cost for packet is too much for you, you know, there's always a bunch of seed in there. One option can be getting together and purchasing seeds. You know, I'll purchase the cucumber seed, you do the onion seed, you do the lettuce seed, you know, and then share as a group. So we all don't have to buy a packet of each thing. Another thing, we can save our excess seed from previous years. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the next few slides. But it depends on the vegetable, how long, or the flower, how long that seed will stay viable. So not all seed stays viable all the time. Onion seed, you have to get fresh. Parsnip seed, you need to get fresh. So seed selection, also the seed that you save from previous years. And I was going to mention, I think that's later on. When you're looking at seed catalogs, and Lori will have a seed catalog activity for you to do here in a little bit, these seed companies have spent years and years developing disease-resistant varieties. And why would they do that? It's like, with Extension, we have the Integrated Pest Management Program trying to reduce the use of pesticides. One of the easiest ways to reduce, like, fungicides on many of our crops is to get disease-resistant varieties. So that's why the seed companies have spent a lot of time, and you'll notice they'll have those little codes. That's what those little codes mean. And the thing is glaring, so I can't quite see it. But I put up a picture of New Girl. That's an F1 variety that's in Johnny's. And if you look, it's the code right underneath it. It's 62 days. And the HR means it's highly resistant to diseases, and the diseases are in F, so that's Fusarium wilt, 1 and 2, there are 2 races. And then V, Verticillium wilt. So it's that particular variety has high resistance to those 2 diseases. And you may see, you know, some resistance. And this doesn't mean that your plants won't get that disease. You still have to watch them. It just means if the plant is exposed to that disease, it won't go down as fast. You know, the symptoms will be less. And you'll need to have more spores available to really infect the plant. So that's what the disease resistance. The other thing you'll see is hybrid or standard or heirloom. You'll see those terms. And what the standard plants are the non-hybrid plants. Those are plants that the gardeners or the company have just selected. They've gone out in the garden and picked a plant to save the seed. And usually if you've had grandparents that have saved seed for a number of years, you know, there are melons that are in families, tomatoes that have been in families. That's how it comes about. The genetics has probably shifted a little bit, but it's that non-hybrid. It's been open. I should stay closer.
I don't know if that's going to help, or do you want me to move
Yeah,
it more
no,
this way?
that's good. That's
Okay.
good. I forget about the microphone. So these might be the regionally adapted vegetables that we see. These are true to type, what they call true to type, and I'll go through some genetics. If you get too glazed over, we'll go by it real fast. But it has to do with genetics. And if you've heard people say, well, I planted that seed and something different came up. You saved some flower seed, and it wasn't even the same color. You saved seed from an apple, and it came up with something completely different. That's because those seeds were not true to type. They were hybrid, or they were, had something else going on. So they haven't been crossed with different varieties. Many of the flowers and herbs are the true botanical species. They're not hybrids. And again, I mentioned if you see the term heirloom or open pollinated, that's non-hybrid. That means if you saved the seed from those, you should get something similar. Hybrid cultivars. This is how a lot of the improvement in different varieties have occurred. And seed companies take two parents with similar or different characteristics and cross them, and then collect the seed. So the offspring will be different from the parents. And a lot of the corn hybrids that we get, that we grow, have been developed this way. It takes quite a while for the companies to come up with new hybrids, and if you ever get a chance to visit a seed company growing fields, it's very interesting. They usually have tours. So, if you're thinking about saving seed from plants that you grow during the summer, avoid the seeds from plants that are labeled cultivar. That's a Q, it's a hybrid. You might see F1 hybrid. And then if it says triploid or double flowers, a lot of times those plants produce sterile seed, which means there'll be seed there, and you'll plant them, and nothing will happen because it didn't mature correctly. And this is a slide from years ago, and I put most vegetables are hybrid. Well, I suppose if you looked at all the seed that was ever produced in the country, because we have a lot of farms that are planting, then that would be accurate. A lot of home gardeners are going for heirloom or they're regionally adapted varieties, so that might be a little bit different. I told you I'd go over some genetics. Are you confused yet? So this is looking at how they develop an F1. It's called an F1, the first cross of a plant. And this happens to be a flower. And you can see there are two open-pollinated cultivar varieties. And they've been self-pollinating themselves for generations and came up with these two colors. This bluish color, because my computer apparently liked the blue, or the pinkish color. And so when those are crossed, the resulting plants, or the resulting seeds, produce a plant that's pink with a little blast of color on the petals and an orange center. So that's your F1, the first cross seed. So what happens if you try to save the seed from this plant? Well, to make it a little more confusing, we'll go to peas, because Mendel liked peas. I don't know if you studied that in school, but they tell about how he went out in his garden and he grew all sorts of peas, and he kept track of how tall they were, and their flower colors, and all those types of things. They kept them separated. So if you cross the F1 generation, and in genetics there's a term they call phenotype, and that means what it looks like. Just what it looks like. That's what phenotype means. Genotype means what's in the genes, what's in the guts of it, that we can't see. And the F1 generation, this is just a tall pea versus a dwarf pea. capital T for tall, little t for dwarf. So the F1 generation, the genotype is actually capital T, little t. All of them are capital T, little t. Well, if you cross those, then what you see, you'll see 3 tall plants and 1 short plant. But the genetics in those are different. There'll be one, this is a ratio. One part of them will be capital T, capital T. 2 of them will be capital T, little t, and 1 will be little t, little t. So that's like, whoa, genetics. So that's why, you know, if you save those, you'll get this funny mix of plants that come out. And this is just to make it a little bit more confusing. There's also a thing called incomplete dominance. The P thing, this was an example of complete dominance. Like the capital T, the tall gene takes over no matter what. With incomplete dominance, neither gene can like take over the phenotype of the plant. So if you cross a red 4 o'clock with a white 4 o'clock, the result is pink 4 o'clocks. So if you save the seed from those and grow it in the next year, you'll have a ratio of 1 red to 2 pink to 1 white. So all this discussion, I'm not trying to confuse you, I'm trying to impress that when you save hybrid seed, you're not going to get the same thing. Okay. And so why do they do that? I talked about disease resistance, but also color, taste. I can remember when I started an extension, store-bought tomatoes had no taste at all. I don't know if you've noticed, they're not that bad now, depending on the variety. Their yield, they want to increase yield and storage capability. And both the home gardener and the commercial grower wants to be able to store the vegetables, you know, so they can have something to sell in the off-season or something to eat in the off-season. So what vegetables should you grow? What varieties should you grow? How are you going to decide this? If you've been doing it for a number of years, you have some family preferences, I'm sure. For me, I used to like one type of cherry tomato, but I've shifted because of this one tomato program. Esterina is my favorite, but it can vary. You'll have varieties that you've had great success with in the past, you know, that would be a good choice. You may have some recommendations from others, and it might be friends, neighbors, extension. And in that listing of publications, we do have our vegetable variety suggestions. Those are more tried and true. You aren't going to see the brand new varieties on there, because that list was designed so that new gardeners would be assured of a success. So that's why those varieties are there. Now, we're going to explore seed catalogs. And Lori's we've went through and we sent requests to different companies for different types of seed catalogs. And she's got a bunch of them. She's going to lead you through that. You want me to hand out the catalogs?
Sure. So the first thing I'm going to do, though, is send this tablet around so that if you want to sign up for the newsletter, go ahead and put your name, the town, and your email. And I had a thought while I was in the back. I think everyone here should have an opportunity to get one of the one tomatoes when we do that program. So if you would like to, on the second page, put your email address on there, what I can do is send you an email when we start distributing the one tomatoes. And also what you can do is keep an eye on our Facebook page and our social media, because we do announce where we're going to be distributing them and whatnot. And it's just such a super, super fun program. And at the end of the season, like Donna was saying, we request information. And one of the things that I like to know is what color you got, because we don't tell you what color you're going to get, you know, when we distribute them. So that's part of the big surprise, the big reveal. So,
They're tomatoes,
yes, cherry tomatoes.
and they can be different colors.
They can be one of 3 different colors, and it's to encourage folks to just give a chance to growing some of your own food. But I will say, last year the yield was so high on the one that I grew. I was just amazed. And then we can translate that to how much value, cash value it had if you had to go to the grocery store and purchase it. So it's just a really fun program, and I'd love you all to get a 1 tomato. And during the summer, if you want, you can send us photos and things like that, and we can put them on Facebook, and we can share. We also want to know how it does, though. Like, are you having any difficulties? You know, are they disease resistant? Or I know that one of the things that we struggled with last year was keeping ours watered enough. So those types of things. But Donna has some great photos too that we should put on Facebook of like a tomato that she grew in a bag of soil, just to show you can grow them in anything. Yeah, and it didn't get watered, and it's just like, you know, and then she watered it and it came right back. So it's a fun thing. And so first page is for the newsletter sign up. Second page is for the 1 tomato. We can send you an email and let you know when those are ready.
If you don't have email, you don't have.
If you don't have email, just go ahead and give me your
phone
postal
number?
address or phone number, whichever you'd prefer, and we can contact you that way. Also, I was giving out everyone a bag of the seed starting mix, and I have 1 bag left here. But I have more at the office, and this is also a plug for you all to know where our office is, which is just across the street, over behind the courthouse. If you want to pop in there, and also if you needed a printed copy of these bulletins, either on the tablet or stop into the office, we can print those off for you, and you can pick up some seed starting mix. And one other thing before we do some of the fun stuff with the seed catalog is we do have some soil test kits, the boxes with us today. So if you're needing one of those, I've got some. We can hand those out. If you find you need more later on, just stop by the office too. So.
And we have those boxes in our drop box. It's a mailbox outside the door, so if we're not open, you can stop in and
I always forget that part. Yeah, they're out there. But yeah, we have these. If anyone needs them, why don't I just leave these? Yeah. So, I believe seed catalogs are dangerous business. It's like a mini vacation for me, and I always get completely carried away. And Donna's suggestion of ordering seeds within a group is great, because you know some of the seed packets do have a lot in them, of course, a lot more than we would use. But it's a great way to spend a winter afternoon, if you ask me. I mean, obviously you can see from some of the catalogs that Donna passed around, the photos can be gorgeous, and it's very enticing, and it's very easy to think that your garden grew 3 sizes over the winter, and so you have room for everything. I try to stay calm and just order like maybe 1 or 2 unique things that I want to try each year, but I do like to go with a plan in mind. Number 1, just how much is that going to produce, so that you can gauge how much your family is going to consume, or you're going to consume. And also, if you're looking for food preservation, you know, if that's your goal, you can judge the yield a lot better that way too. But some of the things that seed catalogs tell us is just so essential. So if you, we all have one that's different, I think, so that's awesome. But usually the seed catalogs will start out almost with like their mission statement, what they're about, where they're at, and you can get a good sense of the offerings that they're going to have. But most of all, the description of the plant. Now, some seed catalogs, as you can tell, if you look at one of the descriptions, like, do you have a Johnny?
No.
You have territorial. So, some of them are just very down to business, and they're gonna let you know, what type of yield you'll get right off the bat. They don't give a very flowery description, but that's okay, because sometimes that's what we wanna know. But you'll notice in your catalogs, I'm trying to find one that's so this one here, the kitchen garden, yes. It's, the title of their catalog gives you a very good indicator. They like to give you taste information. They give you all the essential information, but they like to tell you what it's good to cook with it as, things like that. So if you're growing a kitchen garden or a cottage garden, market garden, something like that, that's very helpful information. However, some of you may have like a Johnny's. Johnny's is a good combination of both. So they will give you some really good information about if you're planning on storing or preserving as well. It's not so much how to cook with it, but how to store it and make that crop last. So as you look at your catalogs, are you finding anything that you are wondering why they put that in there? You'll see, like Donna was talking about with the F1, it'll give you, this one in particular, I think, is very good about giving disease resistance information. So do you want to look and see right there at the top, what's that? I'm not sure of that particular plant.
Okay, I was just looking at the fennel, and it's got some symbols.
The fennel, okay, let's look at the fennel. So, good point. So the first thing to look at is in the front of the catalog, is they're going to give you a code to understand what the information they're telling you is going to mean. For example, the keys to the symbols in this catalog, which happens to be Territorial Seed Company, they tell you whether or not it was an All-American Selections winner, whether it's a cold hardy variety, whether or not it's container friendly, is it a dual season variety, is it an heirloom variety, is it new to them, to that particular seed company, is organic availability, and plant availability. They also, this is a really in-depth one. It also will supply you with information like whether it's great for cutting and crafting, if it's culinary, if it's tea, partial shade, full shade. That's a great one. So if you're ever wondering about the vegetables that you can grow in shade, that can be a challenge. So those are great ones.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. So, so they'll give you the disease resistance code, the size of the mature plant. That's gonna come in handy, especially when you're planning on just how much you can grow in the space that you have available, particularly if you do raised beds. And also the days to the harvest, when that reaches its maturity. Is that going to be, as you're planning, is that going to be the week, is everything going to come mature the week that you're going away on vacation, or all your relatives from away are joining you? Actually, that might be a good time. Now that I think about that, no, I take that back. Have it come ready to harvest when all your relatives visit and they can help you harvest. That's a good point to know.
The trouble is our weather gets in the way.
Yes.
Change it one week or another. So you may have everything the week before or the week after.
Yeah. But there's a lot. This is not a guarantee, for sure. but it gives you a general idea when you're doing that planning. I like that information particularly because I'm a food preserver, so I don't want everything coming mature at the same time. It's too much. And I try to avoid like that hot week in August, you know. I don't want to have to be doing food preservation during that time. And if you're just storing your crops too, if you think about it, you know, is that going to be the best time for me to harvest? You know, is it going to be so hot that the crops are going to be already stressed before I start working heavily with them? So that sort of thing. That is some more information that your seed catalogs will give you is your heat tolerance. Some of them provide that. Importantly, also the cost of the seed. You'll notice that some of these specialty seeds in these catalogs can get kind of pricey. Now some will sell you them by weight, you know, if you do that. Others do per package, and they'll give you an idea of exactly how much is going to be in the package. There was one that stuck out, now I don't remember which one when I was going through, and it was close to $5, and it was only 5 seeds in the packet. Well, it's one of those fun crops to grow. It was one of the I call them the designer pumpkins, you know, for decorating. So, you know, I can see why that would have been a little bit more expensive, but still, I think I kind of waited a beat before I went, yeah, are the pests going to get that before it gets to maturity? Is it going to be worth it, you know? But something to keep in mind. Also something to keep in mind is some of the seeds, for example, like the lettuce seeds, that's a good one. You're gonna get a lot in a small package. And we think, oh, we can't possibly use that many seeds. We can, because we can plant more than once. And we certainly don't want to plant, well, I can't say that really. We probably won't want to plant all of our lettuce seeds at once. That would take up a lot of area in our garden, and again, it would all come due at the same time. So that's a lot of lettuce to eat in 1 week. So they'll indicate, as I said, whether they're hybrid or heirloom varieties. And that's always helpful information as well, especially if you're looking to see if you want to save seeds or not. But take a look at your seed catalogs and see if there's anything fun or interesting you want to bring up. Yes?
Is there any advantage of getting the organic over the regular seed?
That is your choice. So the question is there an advantage over getting the organic or the standard? Do they call it standard?
Well, they just don't.
They just say organic. So is there an advantage? So number one, it's a choice. It's what direction you want to go with what you grow. We did talk about disease-resistant varieties, so that's something to consider as well. I would say another thing to just consider is there's usually a price difference in the seeds as well. Some folks are just very adamant it's organic or nothing, or they're the other way too. You know, they don't need organic, so it's going to be ultimately your choice. Yeah.
Just in regards to that as well, is it based on my readings more that like you have to get organic seeds if you're certified organic, but regardless, the way you raise them is more like I don't really understand what makes a seed organic versus standard at the seed stage.
I am going to take advantage of the fact that Donna Coffin is here today, and I'm going to let her answer that because she's going to give you a much better answer.
That, what it means is that seed was developed under organic practices. It didn't have commercial fertilizer, it didn't have commercial chemicals. It may have been sprayed by a pesticide, but the pesticide had to be certified.
Okay, so it's the small risk. There's some kind of inorganic product on the seed itself is the main difference.
No, it's the how it was grown.
How it was grown. Okay.
How it was grown.
Because I've seen sometimes like there's the exact same variety has both organic
Yep.
and standard
And it's
seeds,
just-
and it's just the way they're grown.
No,
Okay.
that's the way they're grown. The other thing is you may see some seed has been treated,
Yes.
and that means it's been treated with a fungicide. Most fungicides are inorganic. But that means if you plant into cooler soils, your chance of that seedling being successful is higher with a fungicide-treated seed. If you wait until the soil temperature is higher, then you should get the same result. But it's, it depends.
Oh, don't, go ahead.
This is just, I'm looking to get a bunch of cover crop seed in, and I was looking at Johnny's particularly, and there's always kind of a serious upcharge for ordering any kind of, like, multiple pounds of something. Do you guys know of any, like, local providers we can buy it in person?
In Detroit, there's, used to be called Cavendish.
No,
Bob-
that is,
Bob's. Bob's
There you go.
has.
Bob's carries.
Okay, great.
Real local.
Cover crop seed is great. New to the area. Thank you.
Go back in the garden area. It's actually about the dog food. You'll see big pound bags of it, fry and whatever stuff. on
Sweet,
top
thank
of it.
you.
the place in Detroit, Donna, has actually changed names again, and I'm not sure, it's changed hands one more time, so I'm not sure of it. But one of the catalogs floating around here as well, I'm not sure, I didn't check the prices, but it also had quite a few cover crops in it, other than
This
Johnny's.
is a high mown.
Yeah, that's the
This
one.
is too.
One other thing that your seed catalogs will give you information on is whether or not it's going to be direct sow, or if you need to start them, ahead of time. And they give you most of them will give you a very good idea of how long before you should start them inside. Yes.
About 5 years ago with tomatoes, with the blight, and it went right into the soil.
Uh-huh.
Every year we've been putting one plant in, and we still have the blight, so we grow most of ours in big 5-gallon tubs.
Uh-huh.
Is there anything you can do about that blight, or is it just there forever in our garden?
So the question is about growing tomatoes in containers, and
They're fine in the container.
they're fine in the container, but you're still having issues. Now, when you say blight, early blight, late blight, is it something else?
Black spots
Black spots?
all over the tomato.
Or black spot on the fruit? or
On the
black-
fruit.
Oh,
So black spot on the fruit, yes.
we should have, are we gonna be talking about diseases at some point?
Yes.
In a future
I
session?
think we were planning on incorporating it in the weed one, weren't we?
Okay. If you're getting tomatoes that have a black spot where the blossom is, it's blossom end rot, not a disease. It's how they're being grown, it's the environmental conditions for the moment when that blossom was changing into a fruit. And just that truss of fruit will be affected. If you noticed, it may be the first bunch of fruit or the second bunch, that you'll have quite a few of them. They'll have that little black spot. It's blossom end rot. You can cut it off if you want. They'll ripen. They won't do very well. They probably won't taste very well. They won't hurt you. But it's related to an uneven level of moisture. So if you have like slug of rain and it's really hot, the plant dries out a tiny bit, slug more rain, really hot, that can drive the blossom end rot. Some varieties are more susceptible than others.
So I have a question for Donna, because I just realized something that we should talk about. If you want to come up by the microphone. But we didn't really talk about, seedlings, what we're going to run into with seedlings, like, am I over on my time?
No.
Okay. Did you want to mention some of the?
I think I've got some pictures.
Yeah, I was thinking of that. We should probably talk about some of the issues you get when you're starting your seedlings as well. Do you want to look for the slides, or do you want me?
No, we'll
Okay.
talk about it
Okay.
when we get there. So what you look for in the descriptions, the one thing I look for is taste. And if you look at those descriptions on some of the vegetables, can you find a vegetable that doesn't really comment on taste? It will say, wonderful yielder, out yields whatever. You can start it early or start it late. You can do all sorts of things. It's a beautiful plant. It's a this or that or the other thing. And it might say mild taste. For me, it's like I'd go on to something else.
That's a good one. I wasn't even thinking of that. I mean,
It's like, what if you want something that tastes good? The descripting words of taste need to be superior, wonderful. You know, if you see the term mild, tastier than some other variety, it's like, well then, what other variety is that?
I never thought of that. I
But
do
it's
look at that a lot,
Yeah.
especially with an eye towards, like, with my pickles, you know. I'm always looking, you know, for the taste description.
A number of years ago, we lived in Texas for 30-some years. I remember hearing that, I think it was Texas A&M was studying tomatoes and trying to breed new varieties and this type of thing. And one thing that they were trying to breed was a squarish tomato. And my first thought on seeing that was, that must taste horrible. Because everything in the stores tasted nasty at the time. And
Yep.
it just-
And they have developed a tomato that is kind of squarey.
It packs better.
Yeah. It's kind of squarey.
So I was just thinking of, you know, some of the, when you do start using your seed mix, seed starting mix, moisture issues. I find that mixing this seed starting mix is, it takes a lot of water to get it going. It really does. And then at the bottom, no matter how well I mix it in a bucket or container, that's really wet at the bottom. So when you go to mix this up, try to make sure you get all the way to the bottom and it's evenly distributed. The moisture is evenly distributed. As far as containers to start your seeds in, there's a lot of choices that you can go with. I know a lot of folks like to repurpose, you know, yogurt containers, things like that. I think that's perfectly fine, especially from my way of thinking. You know, it contained a food product, so I know that it did not, you know, contain any type of chemical or anything like that that may have leached into the plastic, things like that. Of course, you can, yes?
And what about these peat cups? Are those good to use?
I think it's good to, you know, compare the price. I think they're good to use, but I think moisture control is a little bit more of a challenge with them. When it comes to moisture and, you know, watering your seeds and, you know, your seedlings, you have to be so vigilant. You really do, because too much is really bad. You know, and of course, not enough is just as bad as well. Thank you.
I've noticed with the peat cups, they don't really break down. If you're planting them in natural peat cups, right into the ground,
Yeah.
they don't really break down.
They
We have
don't,
dug up
yeah.
full ones. I think they plant gets kind of root bound in them.
Have you tried soil blocks?
I want to try soil blocks.
Soil blocks change the game.
Yeah.
Incredible.
That's what
Solves
I
all
thought.
those problems.
Yeah.
No plastic waste, and the fruit's just robust.
Yeah, I'm trying to commit to that right
No
now.
transplant shock. Yeah, just plastic.
That's the way to go. Nice.
Well, if we have time at the end, we'll show you how to do newspaper pots
was
too, if you
thinking
have
that.
kids. That's a good project for kids.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I go to McDonald's all the time, so I use the small teacup. With the
Teacup?
holes in the bottom, so at least I get a second use out of them, because I can't throw things away. And as far as the peat pots go, I start some of my tomatoes in a bigger peat pot. I do not plant the peat pot. It doesn't decompose, and when I take the plant out carefully, I shred it, drop it in the ground, and in the fall, it looks like the way I dropped it this spring.
Nice.
So they're not, you know, the roots, I guess, get bound up and they can't get out. They're good for starting, and that's about it.
So we've had soil blocks in the back in case you couldn't hear. And we had a discussion on the peat pots. teacups,
Well,
right?
and if you're using a cup and you're poking a hole, one thing, I've forgotten who taught me this. If you poke a hole like the pencil or whatever, you're going up through the bottom of the cup, that means you'll have a layer of moisture
Oh, yeah,
that will collect there. So you always punch the hole from the top down, so it will drain out.
It's little tips and tricks like that that are just so helpful. But that's, is there anything else?
So
you
did
should know?
anybody find some interesting vegetable or description that you'd like to share? Yeah.
Well, you were talking about taste. This tutorial has a little symbol for the really good tasting ones.
There you go.
Yep, so.
See?
Yep. mark
And
those
not
pages.
everyone has that symbol. do they?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I had a question. I was looking at some onion varieties recently, and there's like you're talking about the long day, which I understand now. What does a short day mean in that context?
Short day means, I'm trying to think, because soybeans do the same thing. And I'm trying to think if I'm gonna get it correct. Short day means that they may be able to do well with a shorter period of time before the summer solstice, but I'm not absolutely sure.
And then I guess just around here, you generally plant long day varieties.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
but I'd have to look that up because I'm not quite sure.
The company that we get the onions from for our Harvest for Hunger projects has an excellent description on their webpage, and they actually did a little video. So can you remind me what the name of that? They're out of Texas. It's a great video explaining short day and long day.
Well, those of you that give us your contact information, when we find that, we'll
Yes.
send it out to you. And
Yeah.
Lori's gonna write this down so we
Yeah.
don't forget.
Yeah, definitely. We'll find out.
So any other interesting things you found in your catalogs? Any variety you're thinking, I think I'll try that.
There are no round zucchini.
There are no round zucchini
In this catalog.
in that, that's right, in that catalog. The other thing I was gonna mention is when you look days to harvest, if we looked at the different companies' catalogs, many times they base their days to harvest on where their farm is, that they're growing the plants, they're growing the seed. And so if Johnny's would have a certain days to harvest, and another seed company that's in the Midwest, central Midwest, would have that same variety, you might see different days to harvest, and that's why. So you can't compare days to harvest in different, through different companies, but you can compare it within one company.
So that's really all I have for the seed catalog portion. So you can talk about the disease a little bit, or no?
We're gonna go to seed storage.
Oh, okay, seed storage, excellent.
Somebody had asked about that, right? So seed storage, and this is whether you have leftover seed or whether you save the seed. And if you're saving seed, the seed needs to be dry before you put it in storage. That's the big thing. And then the container that you put it in needs to be moisture proof. You can use glass jars or plastic bags. There are some people that use paper bags, but that paper bag, you want to put it like in a glass jar or something like that, because paper will absorb moisture and can damage your seed. The other thing is label it. Don't think, oh yeah, I know what that seed looks like. I'll remember that that's a bean seed and that's a pea seed. And label it. Especially if you've got varieties, special varieties that you've purchased. Make sure you've got that name of the plant. If you're saving your own seed, have the date that you collected it. The year is very important, and percent germination if known. Seed companies, when they sell you, if you look at the back of the seed packets, it will say this seed has been checked for germination and it's this percent. That's valid for that year. The next year it will be different. And we'll talk about, you can do your own germination test too. So where do you store them? Cool and dark. It can be in a refrigerator, or it can be in a closet, it can be in a freezer. But with the freezer, once you put the seed in the fall, don't keep taking it out and put it back. Take it out and put it back in, because that change in temperature makes moisture condense on the seed. When the seed warms up, the moisture's condensing on it. So you can keep it in the freezer for a while, but when you take it out for your seed starting, just leave it out and put it in a closet or someplace that's cool or dark. So seed germination test, and depending on how big the seed is, it's really easy. This is a bean seed. We do seed germination sometimes at the schools. Kids love them. But if you count out 10 seeds and put them on a damp folded paper towel, put it in a bag and seal it, and then put it in you want to label it, label what the seed is that you're testing and the date, and leave it at room temperature or a little bit warmer. We used to say put any seed germination you could put on the top of refrigerators because they used to be warm. Mm-hmm. Now they've insulated the refrigerators so much, it's like that's not a warm place anymore. So it's someplace warm. And then after a week, you can open it out and count them. If you're doing parsley, carrots, or celery, it takes longer. They're slower. You can open it up and peek. And what you might see is something like this. There are really 10 bean seeds there. If all 10 germinate, you got 100% germination. And after a year, I don't think that's a realistic expectation. If you have 8 or 9, that means 80 to 90% germination. That's still good. 6 to 7, that's 60 to 70% germination. It's like, well, you could use it, but you want to sow a little bit more seed because they're not going to come up. 5 or less, so that means only half of the seed is viable. And it's like, well, you see here it says, well, throw it out, throw the seed out. It's no good. If it's one of the your family heirloom varieties, it's like you could just give it a try. Just give it a try, but understand the germination isn't going to be great.
I have a question over those that do germinate when you open your, can you take those and put them in seed starter?
Oh, like these beans? You could.
Yeah,
you
and
could.
they would do okay? What do you think?
Well, they'll be stunted. They won't grow very well.
Stunted.
It's
okay.
better to start the seed right in the seed media.
Okay.
But it's like, if you really want to give it a try, it's like, I'm not going to say it's not going to work. But it's more work on your part to try to get them to be viable.
But old seeds that you were hoping, if that 50% that did sprout, like some cucumbers was
But if you did the germination test like right now, it's too early to start.
Oh yeah, for cucumbers, yes.
So
Definitely.
it depends. It depends. But it would give you an idea. If you have some seed that you're going to do germination tests, it will let you know if you need to replace it this year.
Yep.
And life expectancy, remember I mentioned that different seed has different life expectancies. Onions, 1 year. Broccoli, 3 years. Radishes, 5 years, although they probably would last longer than that. Depending on how you keep them. Now, don't you wish that weeds would have this type of life expectancy? They don't. But anyway, lettuce, 6 years. So it depends on the type of vegetable, how long it will last. And one of the hardest things I had was going through my old seed packets.
And throwing them out.
A 10-year-old onion seed isn't going to do anything. You might as well throw it out.
Dump them all in the garden, see what pops up.
Yes, some people do that. That would be a fun
My
one.
husband was given some old seeds from a friend that had worked from Agway, and he got a whole lot of old seeds, so he took them and threw them in a garden, our garden, far away from, not our good garden, but oh my goodness, a lot of them came up and then we had a challenge to figure out what was what.
That could happen. That could happen, right? Okay, so we've been talking about which seed to get. Now we'll talk about where to start them. And these are just some of the places: cold frames, hotbeds, plastic tunnels, under artificial light inside, windowsills, greenhouses. Those are all options that you can use. How many people have a cold frame? Anybody got a cold frame sitting up outside? That used to be a thing. That used to be a big thing. You know, you had an old window, you could put some wood around it, put it next to a house so it was protected. It can help extend the season. Your sunlight is the source of heat, and you notice if you are using wood, don't think you're going to be smart and use wood that's not going to rot. You know, if you use treated wood, it's treated with some pretty rugged chemicals usually, so don't use treated wood. Maybe that's why there aren't any cold frames anymore. 40 years ago they got it. Yep.
As far as wooden, whether it's cold frames or raised beds, is it okay, like with, say, pine, just seal it up with polyurethane?
You want to look at what's in the polyurethane?
Because I only use the water-based anyway.
Yeah.
Or I've read linseed oil is one of those oils.
Yeah, but the oil, it's like you're getting oil into it. It's like just plan, or if you're doing raised beds, you don't need to have wood. You can just heap the soil up. So then you don't have to worry about it.
I've got a pine raised bed that I made after we did the raised bed workshop up the street. And it's now, that's what, well over 5 years. And it's part of the wood is gone.
Yep. Oh, yeah. It will. The other thing I wanted to mention is somebody said something about hotbeds. It used to, what folks used to do before we had heat tapes and that type of thing, they'd use manure. So 3 feet of manure, fresh manure, from an animal farm that has bedding in it, and that will give you heat for about 3 weeks. But it's going to sink down in, and you'd need to insulate the inside of your hotbed too. But that's a thought. So location, if you're building something onto your house, a lot of people, how many want to have a sun space or a greenhouse attached to their house? You want it on the south side. Hopefully, if you're going to be raising vegetables in the ground, it needs to be well drained. You can also raise it on benches. Protected from the north and west if you can. Near the house if it's going to be separate, because you're going to need to get water out there, and you're going to need to get electricity out there. And it needs to be in full sun in the springtime. If you have a pine tree that's sitting right in front of it, that's not going to work. It's going to shade it during the winter. So there was something else I was going to mention. It just went. Oh, if you're thinking that your greenhouse is going to help you heat your house, that's not going to work. It's either going to be a greenhouse that you're going to need to supplement with heat during the nighttime, or it's going to be a sun space that's going to cool off at night, and you're going to close it off from the rest of the house. So it's not going to be dual purpose. It's one or the other. So if you got plants out there, your house is going to be heating it at night. You can have insulating panels and that type of thing to help reduce it, but you got to decide which is which. And for insulation, if you have the cold frames or hotbeds, you can cover them if we're expecting a particularly cold night to help conserve the heat. And we've got those insulation board is real slick to use, or there are quilts and mats and that type of thing. So wherever you're starting them, you need to have adequate light. And you can see this is the difference between having adequate light for seedlings and not enough light. The seedlings will start to stretch. That means the stem will get really long and thin and kind of wilty. And this is where you can use artificial light. If you're going to use artificial light, you only need to use it 16 hours. You put a simple timer on it. I used to do that all the time. And we used a 2-watt fluorescent bulb set. This is before the new low energy bulbs came about. But if you're using a shop light like this, you need to have an adjustable chain because the plants are going to grow. And they need to be within 2 to 6 inches of the light. So if we tried to grow plants based on the light here, down on a table, there's not enough intensity of light. You'd have to have it right up underneath the light to get the right intensity. And we have plans that you can build your own PVC pipe light stand. I like PVC pipe for garden projects. It's real easy, lightweight, easy to cut, easy to hook together. Don't glue it, because then you can take it apart and fold it up and put it in your closet. But it's real slick. Maybe we should have a PVC pipe making project thing. I mentioned LED lights are new on the scene, relatively new. They are energy efficient. But if you've got a set of shop lights now, don't throw them out. It's like when you have to replace what you've got, then go to LEDs. Or if you don't have anything, go to LEDs. They are more intense and, like I said, it's less expensive to run. So Lori talked a little bit about the planting medium, the stuff that you've got. And there are 2 choices. A lot of people want to save money and they say, well, can I grow my seedlings in garden soil? Well, you can, but garden soil has a lot of disease in it. And you can sterilize it by putting it on a cookie sheet, an inch thick, and then baking it a half an hour at 180 degrees. I was going to say somebody's done it, and there's a reason everybody doesn't do it.
Yes.
It can smell up the kitchen. And when you consider, we're giving you a bag here, and that probably is enough to start all your seeds, because once they get the 2 true leaves, you can transplant them into a pot that has your garden soil. The other thing is the garden soil may be very dense and hard for the roots to grow in, so you may have to add some soil amendments. The soilless media, depending on, I haven't looked at this package, usually made of sphagnum moss, perlite, vermiculite, peat moss, polyacrylamide. Sometimes you'll see that there, and people say, oh my God, what is that? This is a product that when I started 40 years ago, I got a company said, we'll send you a sample. It absorbs 400 times its weight in water. We'll send you a pound box. And I was thinking, what if it gets wet in the post office? That was my thought. But I've used this every year since. And this is polyacrylamide is made to hold moisture, and it will release moisture when the plant needs it. Now you might think, well, that's a chemical. I'm not going to use a chemical. Anybody have any babies or toddlers that have diapers that are like the extra absorbent diapers that you see kind of a jelly stuff? That's polyacrylamide. So they use it in baby diapers. But I'm not sure I'd use used baby diapers.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Now, would you mix that in 100%, or is that just you add it into your mix?
You
That
add it
all
into
goes-
the mix,
like,
and it will say, whatever company you get it from, it will say how many tablespoons per volume.
They come in a little crystal granule, I
Yep.
think I've seen it.
Yep, it's
We don't get it.
crystals. It comes as white crystals, or blue crystals, or yellow crystals, or pink crystal, you name it, it comes in different crystals. And when it's really moist, you'll see these great big clods of crystals. And you'll think, what's that? It's doing its job. And why that's important, it pulls the moisture away from the roots so that the plant won't drown. And then it will release the moisture back so that they'll get that moisture. It's to help with human error. You know, when we overwater, this is going to help. When we forget to water, this is going to help a little bit. You have a question?
Yeah, I have used diapers in my window boxes.
You have used diapers in your window?
Yeah.
Ah, well
I
there.
read it somewhere in a magazine that can help with, you know.
Hold the moisture. You pull off, is there a plastic thing?
No, I just opened it up and put it in, like, the inside of the diaper part up towards the soil and
Uh-huh.
just covered it and.
I would have thought, you know, because a lot of times they have a plastic liner. I would have imagined pulling that off, but it's
That
worked.
probably might,
It's worked.
it worked better.
Planted it, hope the baby doesn't grow.
Yeah, no. Didn't have any of that.
I don't know who said that, but that was really funny.
Okay, when we get down to planting the seeds, whatever container you're using, you're going to put the moistened media in it, and I usually use hot water. I'll have a bucket or something, put the media in it, get my hot water steaming hot, put it in, and you can mix it with your hand. You're going to get all dirty anyway, so might as well mix it with your hand. And pack it into the container. And then you spread the seeds on the top. I'll tell you, there are some plants you can't do this to. I call this the mother pot type of method. You're making a mother pot. Make sure you label and date. Label and date. And cover it with plastic or put it in a plastic bag. You're making a little mini greenhouse. And why labeling is important, remember the first slide with my attached greenhouse? We had trays and trays of different types of plants. I had them labeled. I had several brassicas and several tomato varieties and that type of thing. And I had cats who decided, and a couple of dogs, and they decided, won't this be fun? They jumped up on the thing and flipped them all over and dug in them. And so, I planted what was left, and, you knew eventually, yeah, that was broccoli, that was cauliflower. Didn't know what tomato variety it was, but it worked. So label and date, and try to keep the pets out. So this is, we did a thing on microgreens, and this is why the thing is so shallow. But just, you firm the media first, then you put the seeds on it. If you can't see the seeds after you put them on it, you're good to go. If you can see the seeds, cover it with some more media. Pack it down. Put it in a plastic bag, label and date. And then put it in a place that's gets 65 to 75 degrees. That's what you're looking for. And then once they've germinated, and before they're germinated, they don't need to be in the light. They can be any place. Once they've germinated, you got to put them in the light, but you can reduce the heat to 60 to 70 degrees. Let them grow out. Now, here are the mother pots that have been started, with a bunch of seedlings. Once they get up to that 2 true leaf stage, the first leaves that you see are cotyledon seed leaves. But the next set will look different. Those are the true leaves. So once you see the true leaves, you can start transplanting them to other pots. Okay, so once you get to that point, you can transplant. And you grab them by, yep.
You're probably I was gonna ask, do you you then replant just one little, that's the.
Yeah. Some people will put two, and then at some point during the growing of them, before you set them out, you'll have to pinch back one of them. So it's just when they're ready to transplant into the garden, there should be one in that pot. So at some point, you're going to have to decide. You go. So 2 truly stay label containers. And at this point, you can use unsterilized garden soil because the risk of the dampening off has gone past. And I'm trying to, I don't think we had anything specifically on watering, but Lori had mentioned watering's very important with seedlings. If you don't water them on a schedule or a routine, you water them according to when they need moisture. And the easiest way is to pick a container up, and if it feels light, it needs to be watered. But if you pick it up and it feels like it felt when you just watered it before, don't water it. If you have a cloudy day, that plant isn't growing very fast, so don't water it. If it's a hot, steaming day out, you might have to water it a couple of times. It's better to bring a plant back from wilting than it is to bring a plant back from being watered too much, because the roots will die. And a lot of times we'll have people, they'll bring us or send pictures of plants, and they're wilted, and it's like, well, this plant kept wilting, so I kept watering it, and it kept wilting, and now it doesn't look very good. And we usually tell them, pull the plant out of the pot, and the roots would have rotted off. And so you got to be careful. It's like that wilting can mean that it's dry. It can also mean that it's too wet. Okay, the vine crops. These are the ones that are different. You just want to grow them in the pot that you're going to be transplanting them into the garden. You can put 2 seeds per pot, but again, you're going to be pinching off one. And only 4 weeks. So that's the big change is vine crops just in the pot that you're going to be putting them in the garden in. Here's my watering slide. I knew there was one. I didn't see it. So watering again, number 1 cause of seedling death. And I mentioned if they're small seedlings, they're not going to need much water. As the seedlings get bigger and bigger, they are going to need more. So again, lift it up, lift it up. If you work during the day, check it in the morning. If they're a good weight, you don't have to worry about it. When you come back at night, check them. You may have to water them at night. It's better to water in the morning than at nighttime, because when the temperature cools off, your plant is more susceptible to disease. But if you get home and they're dry, you gotta water. Fertilizer needs, soluble fertilizer, something that is a 1-to-1. That's the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash ratio in the fertilizer mix. You want to have a dilute mix, 1/4 to 1/2 of what the label says. If you have really strong fertilizer, it can build up salts in the root ball, and that's not good for the roots. So just 1/4 to 1/2, and my thing moved. Apply every once or twice apply, how do I want to say it? No more than once a week, maybe just every other week.
Would you start that after the true leaves or like right away?
After the true leaves, because the roots aren't absorbing much when they're just developing. They're just germinated. The roots are just developing from the seed stores, energy stores. So once you transplant them, then you could fertilize them.
And I've read a bit about like using like well-finished compost or worm castings in a starting mix. Is that something that you have experience with, or does that like reduce the fertilizer?
Well, if it's well composted, that means there may not be as many nutrients in it as you think.
Okay.
And it depends on the porosity, how dense it is, and that type of thing. Worm castings I think of as being a very dense material, so you might want to mix it with something.
Okay, thank you.
So watch for disease and insects, and even though it's inside the house, you can get insects, you can get aphids. I think we mentioned if you've got house plants, you may have some bugs that are just kind of hanging out on the house plant, and they see a nice, tender, juicy seedling, they'll be drawn to it. Dampening off is when the seedlings are just coming up, and you'll see they just keel right over. And if you look at them real close, right next to the soil level, you'll see something that looks like a constriction in the stem of the seedling. And that's the disease organism has weakened the plant, and it's not going to survive. So it's like, throw those out, start new. And the idea is to use the disease-free starting media to prevent that, and make sure they have the right temperature so that they'll germinate quickly and get past that sensitive stage. And there's some wilty tomato plants on the bottom in newspaper pots. They're fine, just water them. They'll come back. Okay.
I got a question.
Yeah.
So you're doing like the mother pot method, and you have a bunch of, you pull out your plants and you've got some leftover starting medium. Is it okay to reuse that?
You could, but don't use it to start new seedlings. It's like the
Put it in
nutrients have
garden,
depleted.
right?
Yeah.
Don't use it for
Oh, yeah.
restarting again. Okay, thank you.
And sometimes, we think we're doing a wonderful job. We start all these seeds, but stuff happens. Something doesn't grow. Something doesn't do well. You forgot to start the pepper plants, and so you got to buy some from somebody. Bob's, maybe. But when you're going someplace to buy seedlings, some things to look for or look out for. If the leaves are all yellow, that's a caution. You might see the lower leaves yellow. That's okay. Because as a plant grows, they'll steal nutrients from the oldest leaves for the new leaves. But if the whole plant's yellow, I might go to another plant. Remember we mentioned leggy growth, not grown under enough light. That can be a caution. If you see insects on the plant, don't buy those because you're buying a problem. If you see disease, don't buy those. You're buying a problem. If they're wilted, the temptation is, I can save them. But it's like, they can only be wilted and rehydrated so many times. How many times has that plant been wilted and hydrated? Some of the bigger box stores are notorious for this. You go out and everything is like this, and then the employee has a chance to water them. They look fine. And then next day. And if they're damaged, if somebody's dragged a hose over them or something like that, don't go to that one. Just use something else. Hardening off. Somebody mentioned hardening off. Now, when we're raising transplants inside the house behind a glass window, glass filters out ultraviolet light. But if a greenhouse grower is growing them under plastic does not. So they've been exposed to ultraviolet light in a greenhouse. But in your house they have not. And why is that important? What happens when we sit out on the beach in the summer? You get some sunburn. You can get them sunburned. So set them out into a shady spot and gradually move them into full sun. It takes about a week or a week and a half. And it's so they get used to the ultraviolet light and also used to the really dry air. Being outside, there's a lot more wind, and so they'll get used to the dry air. And transplanting them, plant them as deep as they were grown in the pot, except, I have an exception. Plant them in the late afternoon or on a cloudy day and then water them in. The exception to that plant as deep as they're grown in the pot. How many people have laid a tomato plant that got too tall down on the ground? Yep. Tomatoes will produce adventitious roots all along the stem of the tomato. Every place the stem touches soil, moist soil, it will start to send out roots. So if your tomato plant's got a little leggy, and don't throw them out, just dig a trench. You snip off the leaves that you're going to bury in the soil and cover them, and you'll have a great big long area that they'll have roots on, so it will be a more robust plant. You can make it. Yep.
Is it generally better to dig a trench than just digging deeper?
Yes,
Okay.
good question. If we dig it deeper, the soil gets cooler as we go down, and if you dig it more shallow, it will have that warmth of the soil. But at the same time, if you're not careful with watering, it will dry out quicker. If you think you may have trouble watering, you may want to stick them straight down.
And can you do a similar thing with other nightshades like peppers and eggplants if they, no?
You can try,
We go try and
but
prove it.
and you're going to say, but I did it, and you'd be lucky. Tomatoes are the only ones I know of. So protecting the seedlings, we used to have this little raised bed greenhouse by the office. And it's just the raised bed, and we put some little holders to hold the PVC pipe. What else would I use? And a piece of plastic, and I had those great big clips that you can get from the hardware or from the auto supply, actually. And so when it was scheduled to be cool out, we'd wrap it up like that, spend the night, and if it was going to be warm, we'd open it up. You can eat. It's easy to take the plastic off. But there are plastic tunnels that you can put out. And you see on the bottom, that's actually shingles that are trying to protect brassicas from the wind. And if you look at a brassica plant, you can see how those leaves kind of come up like that. Well, they act like a helicopter in the wind. They'll turn like that. And so that's to try to prevent that windmill effect. Okay. So why start vegetable seedlings early? The question is, so why are we doing this? You're going to enjoy the season longer. Long season crops like tomatoes and peppers, and you're going to garden longer. Your vegetable harvest season will start earlier in the fall. You might be able to beat some insects, by having the crop mature earlier before they come in. And you can try unusual varieties that you're not going to be able to buy seedlings in the local greenhouses. So those are all good reasons to start early. So newspaper pots. Do we want to try newspaper pot? What time is it? 11:30. Oh, I brought some newspaper. I brought some newspaper. So here's a little project you can do. And when I started out doing these, I had to have a stapler, and I had to do scissors, and have to cut them, be very precise. And then I figured out. Then I saw that the companies had these paper pot makers. You could buy the wooden things to wrap a newspaper around and jam up the end of it to make a newspaper pot. And I thought, well, if I just take newspaper, and this is about 6 inches, and I got 3 layers. And where's your water bottle?
Oh, right here.
I was going to use that.
Yes.
You can use a water bottle, you can use a soup can, you can use anything that's a cylinder. And so I just start wrapping. You might even get away with, actually I don't need 3 layers. This is probably way too much. I bet I could have done it with just 1 layer. And how many people have rolled corns? So what I'm gonna do, when I get this done, I'm gonna fold it in, like when you roll coins. And if you really needed to, you could put a piece of tape on it to hold it. Or you could just leave it like that. And put it in, if you had a bunch of them, you know, if you had the meat trays that you get from the store, or put a bunch of them in a meat tray so that when you water them, it doesn't ruin your counters. But it's just newspaper pot, the simplest design I've seen. And what did it cost me?
They hold up though for the 6 to 8 weeks that from when
They'll
you
hold up.
start?
The
They
bottom
will?
will start to rot a little bit. And when you put them out in the garden, like when
Yeah,
you have
they'll
the peat pots, you will probably want to take the newspaper off. Because if you have anything that sticks up above the garden soil, like this, either paper or peat, it's going to wick all the moisture out of the center and dry the plant out. So it's like, don't have it there. There should be nothing sticking up that's going to wick moisture away. So is that worth the price of admission? Do people want to give it a try so you can take one home? I might have enough newspaper here. Looks like, I think you only need like one piece of newspaper. And I'll cut some more. And who needs to have a cylinder? Now, do we have any other questions? You gotta go. You're welcome.
Anybody need the water bottle?
Yeah. Anybody need the water bottle, or you're gonna just do it by hand?
Yeah. Good night. Oh, thank you.
Do you want your seed catalogs returned?
Yes, please. I'll use them again for another activity.
And is that it for today?
Yeah, unless anyone has any questions.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.